I am Carole Ring, and I am a lifelong resident of Brighton Township. I would like to share my history with you. In 1856, my great-great-grandfather, Sylvester Rouse, and his wife, Sarah Ann Milligan from Hilton, purchased 150 acres of farmland bordering the east side of Brighton-Crammy Boundary Line Road and running from Highway 2 to the south to Little Lake Road to the north. They had 9 children. In 1876, the land passed to their son Hiram, and in 1878 to his sister Harriet and her husband David Reddicks Jr., my great-grandparents, who also purchased 10 acres at a cost of $200. Harriet and David Reddicks then purchased another 100 acres on the Crammy side of Boundary Line Road in 1890. They lived in a log house behind the barn. The property had been planted with 200 apple trees, and they became apple farmers. They had 4 children. 3 of these Reddicks siblings married 3 Barnes siblings from Little Lake. Perhaps they only had 1 team and wagon. One family moved to Rochester and traveled annually by car ferry to Coburg, congregating at the Barnes Little Lake Cottage for family picnics. The offspring from these 3 marriages were double first cousins, as they had the same grandparents on both sides of the family. That makes Mary Macklem and me double second cousins. We tease each other about how grateful we are not to have been given the name Jerusha after our great aunt. Harriet and David found the house a little drafty, so they built this 2-story farmhouse that we are now in, on the original 10 acres bought in 1895. During that year, David was killed returning from Lakeport with a load of apples. The horses became frightened at the rattling of the empty barrels, throwing him off the load. Their son George and his wife Anna, my grandparents, lived in this farmhouse with the widowed Harriet, continuing to work the farm. They had 2 children, Edith, 1896, and Clarence, my dad, in 1905, both born in the farmhouse. George was killed in a 1918 accident similar to his father's with runaway horses while returning from a Brighton canning factory with a load of tomatoes. Dad was only 13 when his father died. George had been an entrepreneur, manufacturing windmills. A windmill remained on the roof of the old barn, and in an earlier day was used to grind the grain. My dad said, "The Barnes were hewers of wood and carriers of water, and the Reddicks were go-getters." Roy and Clara Brown lived here in the farmhouse to help with the work. Their son Raymond was born here. He married Verna Chatton, whom my mother had taught at Hilton, along with Roy Chatton, husband of Florence. Raymond and Verna had 5 daughters, Norma Waite, Shirley Cummings, and Joan Wadling. They were 3 of them. Dad purchased his sister Edith's half of the farm for $1,300. After several payments of $5 and $2 and several years, it was finally paid off. Great-grandmother Harriet lived in the master bedroom, making quilts for the last 30 years of her widowed life. Dad and his mother kept busy carrying firewood, meals, and water up the stairs. I cherish her beautiful quilts. Dad kept a diary in 1922 when he was 17. He told of helping with the chores here, as well as helping neighbors cutting wood, mending fence, planting, hoeing, and so on. His mode of transportation was a bicycle, which he called the pushmobile. Dad married Muriel Anna MacDonald, a teacher, in 1936. She had taught at Hilton, Breeze, Wade's Corners, and Sharon schools. While still single, she traveled to Europe, Bermuda, and Cape Cod. As a farmer's wife, she cooked for thrashers, woodcutters, tomato planters, canned fruits and vegetables, and cut the heads off chickens for preserving. On one occasion, the bread man got the chicken job. Gerald Waite recalled the night of Mom and Dad's shivaree when my mother and her mother-in-law Annie heated pennies on a cookie sheet in the oven and slid them out the upstairs window.